It feels a bit wrong to say this, especially because I love to use the primaries, but here's the reason you shouldn't use the primary wheels in Davinci Resolve. Most people are using the primary wheels in Davinci Resolve, and I'm one of those persons. And I've seen many videos where people tell me over and over again that you should learn how to use the curves. And what I thought is it's definitely overrated, but once I tried it out, I actually found out it's a pretty cool way to color grade. And now I use the curves in almost every color grade that I do. And one of the reasons for that is that you have way more control in my opinion, because you not only got the curves themselves, you also got red, green and blue sliders, so you can control the intensity of each color. And also if you try to make the teal and orange look, you probably use the primary wheels. I also tried that out and it works pretty good in my opinion. But one of the problems with that is that you get messed up black points, but with curves you can avoid that because you got much more control. And some people would say you can use the HDR wheels to do the same, but when I'm working with 8-bit footage, I got the problem that I got some artifacts. It looks almost the same as when you use the color picker, so it looks pretty ugly. And what I learned over the years of color grading is that you should make the grade as soft as possible, so you don't want to play around with the color picker and mess up the whole image. So instead of using the color picker, I use the hue versus hue curves for example. And if I want to do the teal and orange look, I also use the curves instead of the primary or HDR wheels. And also with the primary wheels, you can't subtract colors. So if you try to subtract colors with the primary wheels, what you do is increase a different color. So for example, if you subtract blue and green, it pushes red into the image. If you do the same with the curves, you're actually subtracting the colors, so it doesn't push any different colors into the image, it just subtracts the colors that you chose. Also using the curves for color grading looks way different than using the primary wheels. I tried to get the same color grade with both of them, but they look way different, so you can't exactly get the same results out of both. So now we're in Davinci Resolve, and now I want to show you how I get the teal and orange look with the curves and how I use the primaries. So first I want to make a few notes. This one's gonna be separation, the second one is gonna be hue, and the third one is gonna be curves for the contrast. So we start with the contrast, so I make a point here, pull it down, and make a point here. And now what we can also do is lift the black and pull down the whites a bit, maybe even the middle point a bit here. Now I want to go to the separation node, and then we want to make a point down here. Usually you make a point where the middle gray point is, but in most cases I want to work fast, so I just make a point where I think it is. And then we uncheck this one here, go to the red channel and pull it down in the shadows. And now we're increasing the teal in the shadows by subtracting the red. And now I want to pull down the greens a bit from the shadows so it's more blue. And I think this is pretty good. And now we want to go to the blue channel and pull it down from the highlights so it gets a little bit more yellow in the highlights. But we don't want to have yellow in the highlights. We want to have a more orange look. So we go to the green channel again and pull down the green a bit. And now it's more on the orange side, maybe even a bit on the red side, and this is what we want. That's before and that's after, so you see it makes a huge difference. You can pull it even further and then you can adjust the intensity of each slider, but you have to be very careful with these sliders because they don't go from 0 to 100. When we go for example to the red slider, 50% is actually 0%. When we go below 50, it actually does the exact opposite of what it does when it's at 100%. Now I just want to adjust a few points, so we maybe want to pull down the red even more in the shadows, and I want to pull down the blues and the highlights a bit even more. And now we can go to the hue node, and for that we go to the hue versus hue, and I want to do some adjustments. For example, I want to pull up the yellow so the colors are more on the orange side, but be careful with the skin tones. You don't want them to be too red because the skin tones are actually about here, so you have to be pretty careful. Then I click on the blue color, and now we want to pull it up so it's more on the teal side instead of the blue side. Now I want to check on the vector scope, and I can see the skin tones are not exactly sitting on the vector scope line, so I just click on the skin here, and now we can make some adjustments. For that I want to remove the red point here, and now we pull it down a bit. But now when you make adjustments for the clips, you don't want to use it as a LUT or as an overall grade, because you don't want to have corrections from one clip on the other clip. So now I can make a new node, and now we can use the primaries to finish it off. And I want to have more warmth in the highlights, so I gotta use the gain wheel, and then I want to pull down the lift a bit, but not too much. We have to be very careful. And now I also want to work with the gamma, so I take a look on what looks better. If you want to have more color contrast, we can pull down the gamma to the blue side, but in this case I want to have more warmth on the image, so we pull it to the orange side, and then we pull down the lift even more. And now when we go to the waveform, or even better to the parade, you can see that the black point is off, and this is the problem with the primaries. When we deactivate this node, it's not as much because we used the curves. And when you take a look at the curves, you can see that we didn't affect the black point, and with the primaries we do. So this is why I like the curves more than the primaries, and why I just use the primaries to finish the image. So hopefully you learned something out of this video. And now if you want to learn more about how to get the film look in DaVinci Resolve, you can click on the video on the screen right now. Thanks for watching and see you guys in the next video.